to another Pause and Rewind, your favorite PR podcast. Join us for another campaign review and let us know your thoughts.
And here are your hostess, Sophie and Leticia. How are you today, Sophie?
I'm great, Leticia. What about you?
I'm wonderful. Ready to dive into PR?
Let's do it. Today we're pausing our crazy schedules and rewinding all the way back to 2003. Ladies and gentlemen, meet PETA.
PETA is a non-profit animal rights organization known for its controversial approach to communications and public relations.
The Society of Professional Journalists considers the case we are looking at today to be centered around the power of emotion. So, for today's podcast episode, we have an important trigger warning.
On today's episode, we will be discussing a case that involves explicit images. Viewer discretion is advised. If this content is at all disturbing for you, please look away as needed. Throughout the course of this podcast, you only really need to hear our voices.
That's right. It is a podcast after all.
I'm going to play this video in a moment, but this is a great example of ads that PETA has made. They are known for making very bold choices and making clientele very uncomfortable.
Yes, PETA really likes calling attention to animal cruelty, so they will often use graphic imagery to demonstrate their point. If you aren't a fan of watching that, we don't blame you. Look away if you want. Okay, that was the overview of PETA. Now, let's go over today's campaign. Give us a brief overview, Leticia.
In 2003, PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, launched a thought-provoking campaign named Holocaust in Your Plate. The campaign compared the slaughter of animals for human use to the murder of Jews in the World War II.
Yes, the exhibition consisted of 60-square-foot visual displays of animals in slaughterhouses, with scenes of Nazi concentration camps, along with side-to-side text. It was launched first in the United States before heading to Europe. So, here is an example of one of the pictures on display. It had the following caption. During the 7 years between 1938 and 1945, 12 million people perished in the Holocaust. The same number of animals are killed every 4 hours for food in the US alone.
Yup, that's how PETA framed their campaign.
So I'm sure our audience is dying to know what the public thought of this campaign. What was the public response?
The public response? It was bad, Sophie. The Holocaust-related campaign caused extreme backlash from overall society, but mainly from the Jewish community.
Now, this is really interesting because PETA genuinely thought that nobody from the Jewish community would be upset by this. They thought this way specifically because of a Jewish donor that they had for their campaign.
And because of the outrage from 2004 to 2012, PETA handled a lawsuit from the Central Council of Jews in Germany and a ban from the German Supreme Court and the European Court of the Human Rights in Strasbourg.
Andrew Butler from PETA reported that many staff members from PETA were preparing to be arrested. That's how bad it got. With all of the bad press, you'd think PETA would prepare a good response. So, how did PETA respond to the public?
Well, it was not great. PETA's communication team did recognize that the provocative tone of the campaign they made, but they argued that its content was based on the truth and used a comparison relating the murder of Jews and animals in a truthful and justified manner.
Wow.
Yep. PETA's team claimed that their campaign was legal and ethically sound, since it was based in facts of historical data, both from the Holocaust and slaughterhouse records. PETA also tried to claim that they were following the correct guidelines when creating the campaign.
Exactly. So besides the First Amendment, PETA tried to fall under the PRSA Code of Ethics, the Free Flow of Information Statement. However, the same code also states that public relations professionals should act promptly to correct erroneous communications for which the practitioner is responsible.
And they didn't follow that.
Yep, as you can see, PETA was the topic of great controversy. We've asked a bunch of PR professionals what their thoughts are on this case in a segment that we like to call
Let's Talk to the Pros!
Let's be real here. Nobody we talked to was happy about PETA's campaign. We would like to share what ideas they had to improve it, as well as specifically why all of our sources disliked PETA's approach.
First up, we talked to the recent Oakland University graduate Lauren Reed. She described the campaign as tone deaf and thought that it doesn't work well to resonate with anyone.
It makes everyone unhappy. Brian Beerley, director of media relations at Oakland University, recommended that PETA should have pulled the ads, apologized, and create something with a more widespread appeal.
Holocaust survivors were also not fans of the ad. Abraham Foxman noted that it was abhorrent and that their attempt to win approval was outrageous, offensive, and takes chutzpah to new heights.
It's like they didn't think to consult anyone about this.
For real! Dr. Ma, researcher and assistant professor at Oakland University, even commented that the ad poses harm to people, including physical and psychological harm.
Indirectly, she also worried that these graphic images might contribute to anti-Semitism sentiment. Dr. Chao-Ning Su, PR professional and associate professor at Oakland University, mentioned how this also isn't a new idea, that the Holocaust is so frequently used as a metaphor in political and social discourse that the event itself has lost all meaning associated with its particular historical context.
And now, it's time for some breaking news.
The Guardian's headline read, "The effort by PETA to compare the deliberate, systematic murder of millions of Jews to the issues of animal rights is abhorrent." From the Tampa Bay, they said that the Holocaust was about murdering millions of human beings. Any other use of the word, even when well-intentioned, defames and trivializes. The Independent defines PETA as radical and adds that PETA has made a specialty of aggressive campaigning.
And we go back to the pros' opinion. While this might seem like a crisis, PETA might have had a different opinion.
Dr. Su said that while the use of emaciated bodies may increase shock value, but it also distracts the audience from the main messages and makes the campaign questionable.
Yeah, she said that PETA took the P.T. Barnum approach, which it is, all publicity is good publicity at the end.
Well, why address the crisis when you can just turn a blind eye to it? So, Leticia, tell me, where did PETA miss the target with the campaign?
Were they even aiming at one? What they should have done is to consult with others about their ideas before going forward with it.
Yeah, I always think it's important to recognize what you can and can't use for comparisons or for jokes, especially as a professional company. You've got to think about the audience.
Exactly. Let's compare PETA's campaign to some code of ethics. I think that when we look at guidelines for PRSA code of ethics, you can clearly see that PETA doesn't hold the principle of independence. The point of that is to be accountable for your actions, and they weren't.
Yep, totally agree. The Advertising Code of Ethics says that the advertisers and their agencies should discuss privately potential ethical concerns, and members of the team creating ads should be given permission to express internally their ethical concerns. I do wonder/worry that this could have been a part of the problem for PETA.
It's certainly possible. And then there's the Society of Professional Journalists Codes of Ethics, which calls for the professionals to minimize harm, because the public needs balanced information against potential harm and discomfort. They did not minimize the harm, and that's for sure.
For sure. So you might be asking yourself, what as an industry professional can I learn with this? This case teaches us 3 lessons.
The first, sensationalism is almost never an effective strategy. As Dr. Su pointed out, and we will repeat, it might increase shock of value, but it also distracts the audience from their main messages.
Yes, there's also a line between freedom of speech and the public wellness. While you have the right to express what you want, that doesn't mean you always should. It also doesn't mean that it won't cause bad repercussions.
And third, the concept of taste is a blurry area. What is okay in one perspective might not be for others. While there were Jews involved in creating this campaign, there were some that were really offended by it. It's necessary to check all perspectives from different angles.
And that's where we wrap up our episode.
So for you, was PETA ethical or not?
Spoiler, SPJ team gave the verdict of unethical.
So, next time you see a PETA campaign or any other activist organization, pay attention to the details of it.
You don't want your campaign to end up like poor PETA's did, right? All right, well, thank you for joining me as always, Leticia.
You are so welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.